Hello viewers, yes, this is Ranjana ma'am and you are watching Yes, yours as well as my channel. And yes, this time it is the literature paper. Y'all had always wanted that I should come up with some MCQs, so before I could do it, the board has already put forward or uploaded a sample paper or a specimen paper as to how or what type of questions you will get, what is the format. So the literature paper, I think you all must have got it by now, your schools must have given it to you, so many of you are really hunting for answers. So here I am discussing and solving out the paper for you all. I'm sure it will benefit you. By the way, if you have not subscribed to my channel up till now, please do, and don't forget to press the like button once you have viewed it. And so what are we waiting for? Let's start. So this one also, the literature paper, it carries 40 marks. So we'll start with section A. Section A has 10 questions, each of them they carry 1 marks, and you are given 3 options. So you need to study the story very well, nothing else, and then you are sure to get your 40 out of 40. Even if you cannot practice MCQs, just a quiz will help. Every line should be given importance, the name of the author, the name of the poet, and the poems also are important. They might quote a line with a blank in the middle and tell you to fill it. In ISC I have seen them doing the same. They have given one line, in the middle there is a blank, and you are provided with 2 or 3 options. So if you have learned the poem well, you will remember which word will fit there. So my suggestion is that read the story, the poem or your Merchant of Venice very well. You have a reduced syllabus, only Act 3 and 4 and 5. So I don't think there is any problem. Just go for it and get your 40 out of 40. So without wasting any more time, let's start. The story The Little Match Girl was written by, there is a blank, 3 options, rather 4. Hans Christian Andersen, Roald Dahl, Ruskin Bond and J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling is Harry Potter, my god. So anyway, so these are the 4 options. So the first one you know is your right answer. Hans Christian Andersen, that is the correct answer. So the second one, the visions seen by the little girl in the short story The Little Match Girl reveal the 4 things she needed the most. They were, first option, warmth, food, love and freedom from fear. This is the first option. Second one, food, shelter, warm clothes and a mother. Third option, roast goose, new slippers, candy and a warm cup of tea. And the fourth option, warm overcoat, food, a scarf and a pair of socks. So let's see the options again. The first one tells warmth, the stove, food, that roasted goose, and love and freedom from fear. The grandmother coming is love and freedom from fear, Christian Christmas tree and all that. So just see the second option, food, shelter, warm clothes and a mother. Where does mother fit in? Food, shelter is not shown anywhere. First one is warmth, second one is food. So warmth and shelter, so warmth, yes, so warm clothes or whether warmth, they will fall under the, then shelter is not shown anywhere. So this one is ruled out. And the third one, roast goose, new slippers, candy, warm cup of tea, yes, no, we are not told. And a warm, last one, warm overcoat, food, scarf, pair of socks, where has it been mentioned? So the first one, Warmth, food, love and freedom from fear is the best option. Third question, Maya Angelou has used the cage bird as a symbol for, and the blank. 4 options. The oppressed, the oppressors, feminist writers, writers and activists. So, cage bird is a symbol of whom? The oppressed. And very specifically, she had written it for the Afro-Americans. But they were the oppressed ones, the black people, oppressed. And the white people were the free birds. And the black people, the oppressed one. So later it became symbolic worldwide, symbolic for the oppressed people. All over the world, the cage bird became symbolic of the oppressed people. But when she had written it, it was for the Afro-Americans. So the word, the option, the oppressed is correct. Question number 4. The central message of Browning's poem. Remember Browning's poem, The Patriot? The Patriot is, so what is the central message? 4 options. First one, public adulation and glory are short-lived. Yeah, this is a fact. 1 year ago, what happens, and 1 year later he is being sent to his gallows. Very short-lived. Second one, as you sow, so you reap. No, he had tried to be good to the people, but what did he get in return? Death comes to all people, even the rich and famous. So this is not about what the story poem tells you. And God helps those who help themselves. So none of these. So first one, public adulation and glory are short-lived. Yeah. So public adulation, this is very brief. It is like a pendulum oscillating from one end to the other. Any of you, if you have read Julius Caesar, you will realize that at one moment Julius Caesar was hailed as a hero, and the next moment when the conspirators killed him, and then they tried to convince the people that he was very ambitious and a villain, and they agreed. Then Mark Antony comes and he tells, no, he is a hero, and they start believing. So public adulation is very fickle, so short-lived. The Gujars mentioned in Nora Burke's story, the Blue Bead, were who were the Gujars? The options: wandering herdsmen, Stone Age hunters, hunter-gatherers, primitive cultivators. No, they were not cultivators, neither Stone Age hunters, neither hunter-gatherers. They were wandering herdsmen. They kept on changing their location, as we call in Hindi, na, that Banjara sort. So they did not have a permanent establishment. When they had less food for their cattle, or they could not sell their products in the market, or a man-eater was troubling them, their cattle, so then they left the place and sought for fresh pastures. So the answer is, the Gujars mentioned in Nora Burke's story, the Blue Bead, were wandering herdsmen. Question number 6. Sibia lingered behind after the other women had left because. So why did she linger behind? The 4 options. She didn't want to have to help her mother. She didn't want to have to help her mother with preparing the evening meal. Nowhere has this been mentioned, so this is not the right one. She wanted to check if her little clay cups were still in the cave where she had left them. She wanted to chat with the Gujar woman who came to draw water from the river. She didn't know her only. And she was exhausted and wanted to take a rest for a while. No, she wanted to have a look at the clay cups, and that is why she lingered. So the second option is the correct answer. She wanted to check if her little clay cups were still in the cave where she had left them. 7th one. Tubal returns from Genova with news both good and bad for Shylock. Which of the following did he not say to Shylock? So once he gives the bad news, Shylock is depressed, his head in his boots. Then he talks about Antonio's losses, and Shylock is as if on an elevated platform, very happy. So which did he not say? That he had met Jessica, Shylock's daughter, in Genova, that in Genova he had heard news of Antonio's misfortune. Third option, that Jessica had spent 80 ducats in one night in Genova, and fourth one, he had been shown Shylock's ring that Jessica had traded in Genova for a monkey. So which one did he not say? The first option, that he had met Jessica, because he didn't meet Jessica, so he did not say he had met Jessica. So this is the one he had not said. All the other three he had said. He had told about the ring, he had told about the 80 ducats, he had told about Antonio's misfortune, but he never said that he had met Jessica. So this is the right option. Question number 8. Soon after Portia and Bassanio declare their love for each other, another pair also declares their love for each other and asks to be married at the same time as Portia and Bassanio. So Portia and Bassanio chooses the right casket, and then yes, they express their feelings for each other and all that, and then someone, or rather a couple, they express their love for each other and they wish to get married at the same time along with them. So who are these? Gratiano and Nerissa, first option. Gratiano and Jessica, second option. Lorenzo and Nerissa, third option. Lorenzo and Jessica, fourth option. So which one? Obviously Gratiano and Nerissa. So the first one. How can Gratiano get married to Jessica? Jessica is Lorenzo's wife. In the similar manner, how can Lorenzo get married to Nerissa? Lorenzo is Jessica's husband. So the correct one is Gratiano and Nerissa. Bassanio rejected the golden casket because he knew that Midas had found gold hard to digest. He knew that outward appearances are often deceptive. He found gold too shiny for his taste. He had been told which casket contained Portia's portrait. So Bassanio rejects also because he knew that outward appearance is often deceptive, or outward appearances are often deceptive, the second option. And when Portia left for Venice to put dash the charge in of her house, when Portia left for Venice, she put dash in charge of her house. So whom does she give the job of managing her house? Lorenzo, Jessica, Gratiano, Lancelot. Lorenzo. She calls Lorenzo and Jessica and then tells Lorenzo that she is going away to a monastery. She doesn't tell she is going to Venice. But yes, it is Lorenzo. So these were your first part, section A. Now section B. Here there are 5. Section B, first question, there are 5. This is extract question. You are given an extract and you are given questions, 5 questions for a particular extract. Salarino, why? I'm sure if he forfeit, thou wilt not take his flesh. What's that good for? Act 3, scene 1. Shylock, to bait fish withal. If it will feed nothing else, it will feed my revenge. Remember that speech? So where does the above exchange between Salarino and Shylock take place? 4 options. On a street in Venice, on the Rialto, on a street outside Shylock's house, on a street in Belmont. So Belmont is completely ruled out. On a street outside Shylock's house is also not correct. On the Rialto is very wrong. On a street in Venice. So these two were discussing. Salarino and Salanio, they were discussing, and then Shylock comes and he starts accusing them. So on a street in Venice. Second one, what is Antonio required to forfeit if he fails to repay the amount he borrowed from Shylock within the time specified in the bond? So if he is unable to return the money within 3 months, then what penalty is he supposed to pay? 4 options. First one, a pound of his flesh. Second one, 3 times the sum that he had borrowed. 4, his friendship with Bassanio. And third is his friendship with Bassanio. And the 4th one, all his wealth and property. So you know very well, a pound of his flesh. Yes, because that is what would endanger Antonio's life. Question number 3. A little later in his speech, Shylock compares Christians with Jews. Which of the following comparisons does he not make? If you prick, do we not bleed? If you poison, do we not die? That means if Christian dies, even Jews do have the same, they face the same outcome. So both Jews and Christians bleed when cut. Yeah, he said it. It is said, which one did he not say? So both Jews and Christians die if poisoned. Yes, he said this. Both Jews and Christians treat each other with humility, and both Jews and Christians seek revenge when wronged. So seek revenge when wrong also, he said. So the third one he did not say. Both Jews and Christians treat each other with humility. No, he did not say this. So this is the right answer. Now question number 4. What recent event in his personal life did Shylock lament earlier in the conversation? Before this, to bait fish withal, before this he is lamenting the loss of something. What is it? His wife's death, his daughter's death. His daughter is not dead only. And the loss of an expensive diamond, and his daughter eloping with a Christian. So while I was discussing it with my students, so some of them gave me the answer, the loss of an expensive diamond. That is very wrong, because that happens later. You are asked before this conversation, earlier. So earlier his daughter eloping with a Christian. Remember, he was blaming Salarino and Salanio that you knew of my daughter's flight, none too well. So his daughter's eloping with a Christian is the right answer, not that diamond one. Diamond happens later when Tubal comes and he says. Fifth one, which of the following words would you use to describe Shylock's state of mind after this impassioned speech? After he gives this speech, what is Shylock's frame of mind? So there are 4 options. First one, hurt. Second one, angry. Third one, vindictive. Fourth one, resourceful. So these are the 4, and you have been given his state of mind 4. So which are the ones which he really had? One of them is wrong actually. Resourceful, you cannot describe Shylock's state of mind as resourceful, and the other 3 are correct. Yes, he was hurt, he was angry, he was vindictive, means revengeful. So A, 1, 2 and 3, this is the correct one. Hurt, angry, vindictive. B says 2, 3 and 4. 4 will be ruled out. So which all the options which have number 4, that means resourceful, they are wrong. So the first one only doesn't have 4. The first one says 1, 2 and 3. That means hurt, angry and vindictive. This is the correct answer. Now question number 2. This is another extract. This is from Act 3, Scene 2. Portia, away then, I am locked in one of them. If you do love me, you will find me out. Nerissa and the rest stand all aloof. Portia says, I am locked in one of them. The word one refers to. So what does she mean by one when she says I am locked in one of them? A silver casket? Again a silver casket. This is a printing error. It can't be silver casket. It should be a golden casket. A bronze casket and a lead casket. So she says I am locked in one of them. So in which one is she locked? A lead casket. So the 4th one, D, is the correct answer. Question number 2. A little later, Portia compares Nerissa and the rest to Alcides. See this one, Alcides. In different countries it is pronounced in different ways. Some people pronounce it Alcides, some say Alcides. So you are free to pronounce it as you please. So Alcides and the sea monster, first one. Second option, Alcides and the Dardanian wives. Third one, Alcides and Hesiod. And fourth one, the Dardanian wives with tear-stained faces. The question is, Portia compares Nerissa and the others to what? Dardanian wives with tear-stained faces. This is the correct option. Now question number 3, which of the following statements is not true? That means which is false? At the beginning of the scene, Portia urges Bassanio to wait a while before taking the casket test. This is true, we know. She does tarry a little before you make your choice or whatever. So this is true. Second one, at the beginning of the scene, Bassanio is eager to take the test as he finds the waiting a form of torture. This is also true. He says, I feel I am on the rack. Third one, at the beginning of the scene, Bassanio wants to wait and take the test later as he wants to spend some time with Portia. This is wrong. Nowhere has it been mentioned that he wants to spend time with Portia, and that is why he wants to take the test. And the fourth one, at the beginning of the scene, Portia is afraid that Bassanio might choose the wrong casket and be lost to her forever. Yes, this is also true. So the third option is false, that he wants to spend time with Portia. So the third one. So there is an error. What? It is written 5 questions and 1 marks each, but they have given you only 3 questions. So 2 questions are missing. Most probably they have failed to notice that 2 questions are missing. Okay, so ultimately you all have 2 questions less. They have given you 40 marks, but 2 questions are missing. It's not your fault, neither mine, it's the board's fault. They have failed to upload 2 more questions. Now question number 3, another reference to context. Read the yes. She was evidently trying to warm herself, they said, but no one knew what beautiful vision she had seen and in what a blaze of glory she had entered with her dear old grandmother into the heavenly joy and gladness of a new year. So who said she was evidently trying to warm herself? Who said this? The options are her grandmother, the little girl's father, her mother, and the people who found her lying dead on the street. So it's obvious the father never appears. So the question of his saying something is ruled out. So for the grandmother, she is dead, and the mother, yes, she is dead. So the people who found her lying dead on the street is the correct option. The vision that the little match girl saw when she lit the first match, that means her first vision was of 4 options: an iron stove, a beautiful Christmas tree, a delicious meal laid on a table, her kind and loving grandmother. So the first option, an iron stove, symbolic of warmth, and this is what she desperately needed, warmth. Question number 3. When the little girl saw the shooting star earlier that night, she realized dash. What did she realize? 4 options. That someone was dying, that someone has just been shot, that someone had just been born, and the misfortune awaited her. So the first option, someone was dying, because this is what she had been told by her grandmother. Someone has just been shot is ridiculous, and just been born is equally wrong. And the misfortune awaited her, she did not know that she is going to die. So the first one, she realized someone was dying. How many matches did the little girl light that night? 2, 4, 3, several. So when the little girl left home that morning, she dash. 4 options. 1, was barefoot and bareheaded. 2, was wrapped in a warm woolen shawl, had an old apron and oversized slippers. D, had eaten a hearty breakfast. So when she had come out of her house, when she had left her home, no, she was not barefooted. Remember, she had put on her mother's slippers which were too big for her, and so when she ran in fear on seeing a carriage, So she lost one, and the other one was taken away by a naughty boy who said that when he has a child of his own, he will use it as a cradle. So it was not that she had come out barefoot, but she had not come out barefooted. She had her mother's slippers which were too big for her, so oversized. So the answer would be had an old apron and oversized slippers. Now question number 4 again has 5 questions. First one, the extract is, beside him in the shoals as he lay waiting glimmered a blue gem. So you know which one this story is. The blue bead. So who is he? 4 options. Beside him in the shoal as he lay waiting. So who is he? 4 options. First one, Sibya's father, her brother, the man-eating tiger, the crocodile. So all the first 3 are ruled out because we don't know anything about Sibya's father, neither her brother. We know only about her mother. And the man-eating tiger, there is no tiger at all. So the crocodile. What was he waiting for? 4 options again. Any creature that he could catch unawares and feed on. First one, Sibya and her mother. So no, we are nowhere told he was waiting for Sibya and her mother. To sun himself on the warm rocks, a shoal of fish to come swimming by. No, no, no. The first one, any creature that he could catch unaware and feed on. And that is why when the Gujjar woman came, he tried to catch her unaware. She was not aware that he was there. Question number 3. The word closest in meaning to glimmered in the above line. First one, glimpsed, glittered, half hidden, glued. Glittered. Glittered means shining. All that glitters is not gold. What exactly was the blue gem? Gem means a precious stone, but was it really a precious stone? What was it exactly? To Sibya it might appear as a precious stone, but what was it in reality? A blue diamond? A shiny blue pebble? A piece of sand-worn blue glass? And an enormous sapphire. Sapphire is that green colored precious stone. Blue diamond. A shiny blue pebble. No, none of these. The third option, a piece of sand-worn blue glass. And it had been perforated in the middle also, remember? And the fifth one, the only parts of him means the crocodile, that were soft and vulnerable, means where he could be attacked, because the whole body was bulletproof. So only the places which were vulnerable, there were 2 places. His eyes and nose, no, not the nose. The nose and mouth, no, not at all. The undersides of his arm and tail, undersides of his arm, yes, not the tail. The last one, his eyes and the undersides of his arms, yes, this is the correct one. His eyes. So remember, Sibya had driven her fork straight through the eyes. So these are the ones. And then question number 5, another extract. This is from the caged bird. But a bird that stalks down his narrow cage can seldom see through his bars of rage. So the question is, the caged bird sings about the unknown things that he longs for and for freedom. First option. Second one, shadows and unknown things. Third one, freedom and fat worms. Fourth one, fear and rage. No, the caged bird sings about unknown things that he longs for and freedom. So the caged bird sings about unknown things and he longs for it and freedom. So the first option. Second one, what prevents the caged bird from flying? So why can't the caged bird fly? So this is so obvious why he can't fly. First one, the narrow cage and clipped wings. Second option, his broken wings and his inability to sing. This is wrong because he can sing. So ruled out now only. Third option, his trimmed feathers and his damaged throat. Damaged throat is wrong. And his rage at being held captive. So the first one is the correct option. Why? The cage is narrow. And another thing, his wings are clipped. His wings are clipped and his feet are tied. In this poem, Maya Angelou compares the caged bird with the free bird, first option, second one the freedom fighters, third one children in school, and fourth one the distant hills. The other three are outrageous, only one stands out, and that is the free bird. Yes, you have, if you have read the poem, you know, juxtaposed side by side, the free bird, the caged bird, the free bird, the caged bird. What according to Maya Angelou dares to claim the sky? Sorry, who according to Maya Angelou dares to claim the sky? The caged bird, first option, second option the free bird, third one the angry bird. Yes, angry bird, there is a game, I know, I'm sure you are aware of it. And the third one the songbird, fourth one. So caged bird, free bird, angry bird, songbird. Caged bird, dares to claim the sky is the free bird. Yes, the free bird, he sits on the wings of the wind and then he dares to claim the sky. And the fifth one, the closest in meaning to the word seldom is solitary, solemn, rarely, lonely. Seldom means hardly, not often, so it is rarely. And then the last part, sixth question, again this is a reference to context. It was roses, roses all the way, with myrtle mixed in my path like mad. So you know which one, the patriot. The house roofs seemed to heave and sway, the church spires flamed, such flags they had, a year ago on this very day. The speaker is describing four options. The scene of his welcome the previous year, an outbreak of rioting in his town, a time when people lost their minds and attacked rose and myrtle bushes, what rubbish, the collapse of houses under the weight of the crowd. So the first one, the scene of his welcome the previous year. Yeah, it was exactly a year ago the way he was welcomed by the crowd. So the first option. Second one, the speaker is now dash, four options. On his way to be greeted by the cheering crowd. No, this is the present time, that means he is being taken to his gallows. On his way to his gallows is the second option. Third one, on his way to a political rally. And fourth one, on his way to prison. So 1, 3, 8, A, C and D are wrong, B is correct. On his way to the gallows. Gallows is a place where someone is executed. So he is taken to be executed. The closest in meaning to heave and sway in the above extract is to move in a restless manner, to rise up higher and higher, to sink down under a heavy weight, to swing wildly. So this one is a bit tricky. Different people are giving different answers, different schools are also. Why? Because heave and sway. Heave more or less gives you a horizontal position, movement. A vertical movement, and swaying gives you a horizontal movement. So heave and sway, to move in a restless manner, to sink down under a heavy weight, some schools are suggesting, but that would mean a vertical one, but here it is both. So in that way, and swing wildly. So swing wildly or to move in a restless manner. So sink down under a heavy weight is ruled out. That involves a vertical movement, sinking down under a heavy weight. But at the same time, the house roofs, they are under such pressure that it seemed it would crumble down because of the crowd. So the house roofs, people had gathered on their rooftops. So the rooftops were so crowded, it seemed. So this could also go for to sink down under a heavy weight. The house roofs seem to heave and sway. This can be one answer. Or swing wildly. Though some schools are giving to move in a restless manner. So you check whichever one your school is giving, because different answers are coming for this one. Because the options are not very proper. So half somewhere and half in another one. Fourth one, all the images used by the poet in this stanza are dash images. So they are sound images, visual images, tactile images, colorful images. So just see, it was roses, roses all the way. House roof, church spires, flamed, such flags they had. So this is a visual image. Why? Because it has something with sight, something to do with sight, which you see. So these are visual images, not auditory or sound images, neither tactile, which means touch, and neither colorful ones. Rather visual images, and under visual colorful comes. And the mood described in this opening stanza of Browning's poem The Patriot is the mood in this opening stanza. So celebratory. Why? Because they were celebrating, hailing him as a hero. So the first paragraph, why? It was roses, roses all the way. Yeah, they are celebrating maybe his victory. He's being hailed as a hero, so he must have done something really heroic. So it is a celebratory mood, at least in the first stanza. Later though it becomes a bit gloomy. So these are the ones. Yes, only there is a doubt in one, because different schools and giving different answers, and the options are also not very clear in that one. Heaving and swaying, two different motions, one is horizontal, another is vertical. So rather swing widely could be one, move in a restless, so very close. So what the board suggests, they haven't, I don't know whether they have given any answers or not. So yes, wait and see what your school suggests. Different schools are giving different answers, so go for what your school says. And the others are more or less, they give you the right answer. You have the right option. So anyway, bye for the time being, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to press the like button. Have a happy time.